Whenever they're amateur or professional, hockey leagues need to do more to monitor concussions and CTE.
For each season. So they have a baseline. So if something happens, if a protocol happens, then they get tested against that baseline protocol.
You do a baseline every year. I think if you haven't had a concussion, you can do the baseline every other year, but if you've had a concussion within 12 months, you have to retest your baseline. And that goes from, answering questions, face to face with your trainer, and they ask you to remember 12 things, and then you go through the whole process of kind of more of your memory side of things, and then you got to go back and remember what were those 12 items that I told you, or adding these equations. Obviously we do the walking and kind of looking, so they do an immediate baseline. There's also a computer baseline test that kind of shows how far you are off from your baseline in the previous, and they do a lot of, whether it's a lot of memorization things, reading, reacting, clicking. I think one of the ones that's actually kind of difficult, the color, there'll be a word, so say red, and then if it's red, the actual color red, then you can click that one, but it might say red, but it's in the color green. So like there's trying to trick your brain into different situations. So you have to find the pattern, which word as soon as you do it, and click the right button. So it kind of tests a lot of your cognitive skills, but it does it with a computer.
The baseline test used in hockey leagues is not only one that exists. Several tests can be done in a doctor's office, like the Sport Concussion Assessment Tool. The SCAT, as it's often called, is a standardized test to evaluate concussions, which includes a neck evaluation and a balance assessment, among other elements.
Run patients through the SCAT. There's also something called the VOMS, which is a vestibular ocular motor testing. There's something called the BESS, which is a balance assessment. So we do all of those at kind of their initial visit with us, and then we'll repeat those throughout, and we repeat it again when they are asymptomatic to see. And a lot of the high schools that we cover, and even the colleges that we cover, will already have baseline testing that they take at the beginning of the season before any head injuries have occurred. So then we at least have a baseline to say, okay, now that I'm seeing you your first visit after concussion, you were initially in August, had like a perfect score, and now you have 5 points off for this thing or that thing. So we have something to compare it to.
Unsurprisingly, considering its status as the premier professional hockey league in the world, the NHL has some of the most thorough concussion education among North American hockey leagues. Beyond the concussion videos JT Brown mentioned, the league distributes educational brochures, hangs concussion posters, and hosts educational meetings. The baseline tests are also thorough, including a SCAT app, impact, and paper pencil testing. However, more still needs to be done.
From those standpoints, the National Hockey League has done a good job. What I don't think it's done a good job at all is acknowledging that CTE exists from repetitive head trauma, and that the way to minimize it is minimize the number of hits to the head and the severity of hits to the head. And I realize that unfortunately this is caught up with a legal system. There's liability involved in all of those issues. And so even if somebody fully understood something behind their own library's door, they don't want to admit it necessarily out in public.
Yet, speaking out is a necessary step to changing things.
I think anytime you have more people, whether it's speaking out about it, donating, pledging to donate their brain, obviously getting more scientific evidence on it, I think you're definitely going to have a bigger platform to speak on, and more people are going to be aware of it. I think there's definitely challenges still, in educating people on CTE.
Dr. Cantu explained that monitoring how many hits hockey players take in a game would be helpful. It can be done thanks to a device called a accelerometer.
I do think the monitoring device of an accelerometer just alone is useful, not in determining concussion, but in determining the number of hits and the severity of hits that somebody's had. And if somebody is being shown to have an unusual number of hits, they probably should be studied to see if there's something in the way they're playing the sports that's putting themselves at increased risk.
Research on concussions and CTE has been growing, but a lot remains to be done, in great part because people cannot be used for this research. Instead, brains need to be donated after death. At the end of 2024, the Boston University's Brain Bank had over 1,600 brain donations. Many more will be needed to advance the research.
We're not going to be able to treat or prevent CTE until we can not only diagnose it, right, but also recognize it. But even before that, we have to teach people that this is a problem.